Whether you're stuck solo queuing because you have to or because you want to, this video is designed to help you understand everything you need to do in order to maximize your RP gains while you solo queue ranked this season. The first thing you must do is never pass the jump master if you get it. It's on you to decide the best drop. Don't chance it with handing it off to one of your randoms. I say this assuming, of course, you won't be the one to make the bad drop decision. But Mangoes, how do I know what's a bad drop and a good drop on Kings Canyon? Well, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom right here. Look for a drop at a named POI that has no more than one team going there. Your goal should either be to 50-50 one team at a decent sized POI or land uncontested at another POI. No more landing with 3+ teams and rolling the dice hoping for the best. This is not a sustainable method to gain RP, especially when playing with randoms. You must be paying attention to the dropship's flight path. Is it going north to south, east to west? Whichever it is, this will ultimately gauge where players are more likely to land at. And also, before you drop, it's fine to look behind you briefly to see where teams are or are not going so far. And the last thing you have to do in the dropship is pay attention to the squads remaining in the ship. See, if you're over halfway through the dropship's flight path and it's still showing that 30 players are in the ship, that means half the lobby hasn't dropped yet, and it could get very busy on that side of the map you're headed to. Making the right drop is vital to the solo queue experience, because you cannot afford to lose the max amount of RP off drop consistently, and this is what hangs up a lot of players. If you're enjoying this video so far, please drop right into tapping the like button so this video gets seen by more of your random teammates that you're bound to get in game. Thank you. Okay, so the second thing you definitely should consider doing is establishing voice comms with your teammates as soon as you get into the game. Now, I know, some of you are going to have had previous bad experiences with randoms saying terrible things to you. And trust me, that sucks. There's no two ways around that. It's happened to me too. But I will tell you, the broad majority of random teammates won't be toxic to you. At least that's been my experience so far. Now, the reason I say be vocal is it will either do one of two things for the game. If no one is talking except you, well, it's good practice to you becoming a better vocal teammate and or leader game to game. And the second thing is, you will be surprised how one person making legitimate callouts makes the teammates either listen and follow to what you say, or they decide to hop on the mic too, and you guys could end up collaborating more throughout the match. There's really no way this strat can lose, except of course if one of the teammates is a toxic jerk. But then of course just mute them and understand they probably need some help in their life and they're taking it out on you. So if that happens to you, once the match is over, don't let that experience squander any possible opportunities to communicate with randoms in future matches. The last thing I'll say on this is if it's way too difficult for you to even consider doing this, I'd strongly recommend finding some teammates so you don't ever have to deal with this aspect of online gaming. You can join my Discord to find teammates. The link is in the description of this video, but just make sure you read the rules and look for teammates in the right text channels. Thank you. The third thing you must do while solo queuing is play the right legends. I recently made a tier list that I will link at the end of this video so you can see who I think is the best for this split, but I'm going to give you some of my recommendations here and explain a couple strategies to go along with it. Now, there's really two routes most of you should be taking when it comes to the solo queue selection. One is selecting a mobility based legend like Wraith, Ashe, Valkyrie, or Horizon. And this way, if your randoms end up doing some, let's say, low IQ plays, well, you'll have some ways of finessing out of those situations. It's important to note that if you're not usually playing the mobility role, then don't feel obligated to do this, because you can also go the support/recon route. Legends like Bloodhound, Crypto, Seer, Gibraltar, or Caustic are other great options. You should 100% cater your pick to what your teammates have already selected. So if you're the last person to pick a legend and your teammates are playing Wraith and Valkyrie, you should probably go with one of the support/recon legends. And this way your team can have value in many different areas for that match. Now, some of you are going to be like, well, I never played the support role, or I never play the movement legends. And to that I would respond, well, you better start. Because if you want to sit down and play for a few hours and gain the max amount of RP with randoms, then I recommend you take this suggestion. Apex is a team game at the end of the day, and the higher you climb in the ranks, the more players in those lobbies conform to a meta and utilize that meta to some of the highest extents. Leaving it behind could put you at a severe disadvantage. You guys really want to rank up, right? Well, you got to follow me on this next thing that you must do while you play with randoms. This is more of what your game plan/strategy should be, and it's hard for me to simplify one way to play because things will change fast, but here's what I typically try to do with randoms. Now, 50-50ing a team off drop, like I mentioned earlier, is a great strat. However, if that doesn't happen, don't worry. You can land safe and uncontested, and then just play for positioning that match. Don't go looking for trouble on this map. It will find you just fine. You could think you guys are rolling up to a third-party fight. Before you know it, it's turning into a 6-team pileup, and you're getting eliminated in 16th place with only 1 kill point. We want to avoid these types of fights as much as possible. Mid-game fights on this map tend to go pretty bad, and quickly, because everyone is in their rotation and they're all eager to hop into some mid-game pileup. So be conscious of where on the map you're fighting and how many teams are left alive at that moment too. See, even as a player like me with over 5,000 hours in Apex, and I've reached Masters many times, and yes, I've done it on Kings Canyon in Season 5 and Season 8, but this map makes no sense at all. Players will be super far out of position just to find and force some fight that makes me scratch my head why they're trying to do that at all. So you have to conform to facts that stupid plays will occur, and often, and you've got to try your absolute best to avoid any of it. That is your main goal. Now, this is much easier said than done, but when in doubt, placement is what will get you closer to these RP gains you truly want. If you get any kill points, I would then just strategize for your end game positioning. All right, lastly, one of the most important things to do while solo queuing is if you get on a losing streak, you got to switch it up. Like if you lose a large amount of RP in a short amount of time, take a break, pause, or come back to it at another time. I mean anything really, because you have to mitigate these losses when they start to compound. Now, I'm not saying if you have a couple bad games, quit playing. In fact, I would suggest the contrary. But what I'm saying is if you lose a few hundred RP and quickly, then either switch up to pubs or whatever other mode you like to play for a little bit, or step away from the game for that day or for a few hours. Because playing with randoms is risky. And if you already had a bunch of losses stack up, things can get way worse from there if you aren't careful. Sometimes things will just be off, whether it's you, your aim, your teammates, or the enemies just seem way better that day. Whatever it is, you want to constantly adapt to the rank situations you find yourself in, and this is definitely something you will experience from time to time. Going at ranked as a solo queue player puts you at an extreme disadvantage, generally speaking. If your mind is made up that this is how you want to go about playing Apex ranked, then these are some of the best tips I can think of when it comes to doing this. Now, it won't be easy, and most of the time, it won't be the most enjoyable experience. Oh, and before you guys go, I forgot the most important thing to tell you all to prepare you for the solo queue journey. Don't be afraid to leave a stupid situation if your teammates don't listen to the voice of reason. Like, if you clearly see them making a terrible move, don't feel compelled to go down with the ship, especially if you already have some kill points. This is probably the biggest mistake players make because they just think, well, I've got to play with my teammates here and I know it's dumb, but I'm just going to do it anyway. And this is a huge no-no. So be smart, be calculated, and use your brain in these lobbies. And if you're interested in a more in-depth legend tier list for the Kings Canyon split, I suggest you click on this video here. Peace.